Alright, this is my stencil tutorial. I am going to teach you how to use Adobe Illustrator to create a stencil to print out through a Cricut machine or any other type of software that will cut paper for you to create stencils. So first thing you do is create a new file. Open the file. You want to blank out your fill layer and keep your line layer black for now. And we're going to use a file that I found online earlier. We're going to place this photo into Illustrator. Just got to find it. There it is. We're using Snoopy. Just as an example, he's a good one to use because of the minimal amount of colors, and it's just easy one to work with. So once it's placed, you lock that layer into position. And then you make a new layer. I had to move my artboards over because my record button is actually in the way of where my artboard selections are, so I just moved them over so I could see what I'm doing. So you make a new layer. Once you have the new layer, you use the ellipse tool to create designation marks. Once you create your first designation mark, use Alt, left click, and drag to create an exact copy of your ellipse or designation mark, and then you drag over to select both items, and then you hold Alt again to make another copy, and you want to drag that to the very bottom. You want to put it just a little bit below your object, and then you want to match it with your other designation points. This will actually help you when you're creating your stencil, and when you go to spray it, you can line everything up perfectly. So once you've created this, lock the layer, drag to create a new layer, and another layer, and another layer. You basically want to have a layer for every color, so red, green, white, yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to make 2 more, just in case, for the black outlines. Now, you're going to start with your first layer. You're going to pick your pen tool. The pen tool looks like a little ballpoint pen, or like an ink pen that you would dabble into the actual ink. You want to select this tool. If you don't know how to use this tool, I suggest you get a little practice before you do this. Then once you have this tool, you want to zoom in on your object, and you're going to make your first layer, which will be actually the whole object that you're making into a stencil. And you just want to trace the whole object. Reason this will be your cover layer that will cover your character at the end, and so you can spray a background over it. Now I'm doing these as spray paint stencils. If you have a different way of doing stencils, this might not work for you. So like if you use airbrush, these stencils might not work as well, but you still might find a way to use the techniques that I am doing for your stencils too. So anyways, you just follow the basic outline of your character as best as you can. Now I'm going pretty fast through this. This tutorial means just to kind of show you how to do it. So it's not going to be as perfect or as good as I normally do them, but I'll get as close as I can. Anyways, you just trace it out. This will be your main layer, and since red seems to be the most color here, I think that's what the color of this layer will be. When spraying, I would spray paint the red in, and then I would lay down the other colors over top of that. So the red would be the first color. But you want to have the whole basic shape, because again, you'll use this as a cover for your character once you cover up or spray over it. I like to do full color stencils. I can do the just basic black and whites, but I don't like to do them in the style to where it just looks like a machine did it. I like to actually do it like I would if I was doing these by hand by using cut papers. So that would be your first layer. Once you've got it together and locked, click Select All or Control A. Then you go to Object, Compound Path, and Make, which is Control 8. Now that's a compound path. We want to pick the color, the main color that it's going to be. So I'm going to pick red. Then I'm going to switch it back to the outline and lock it. I'm going to name that layer red. Whole. That's the whole image. Now, I'm going to do the next layer. The next layer, I believe I should do Snoopy. Now, Snoopy is black and white, but I'm going to do this layer as white. Now, I've got the red outline still. Just select that and change it to white. And I'm just going to trace all of Snoopy. Again, I'm just using this character as an example of how to make stencils. There's more advanced things that could be done, but this is just a quick, simple, easy example of how to make stencils. And again, right now I am tracing all of Snoopy's layer so that he will have his own section in the painting. Now Woodstock is just kind of hanging out on Snoopy's belly. I can get him next. And then after that, we'll go through and do all of the background layer. I mean, all of the outline layer. It's pretty straightforward. Any color that you need to cut out, you want to do on its own separate layer. So, for example, this layer is being done in white because this is a layer that you need to be able to cut out. So, like the last one, select all or Control A. Object, Compound Path, Make, Control 8 is another way of doing that. This layer is going to be white, so we select the white, lock the layer, name the layer white. Snoopy. Snoopy, not Snoopy. Alright, so now we're going to do Woodstock. Woodstock is the next layer. We're going to name that, just to get it over with, Yellow Woodstock. Now, go ahead and turn off these other layers real quick just to show Woodstock so we can see him in his color. Or is Woodstock a her? I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen Peanuts. I think Woodstock's a him. Alright, so just trace out Woodstock. Or trace out your next layer of color depending on what you're doing. And just go around that whole layer of color. Anything that's going to be yellow, trace that. You don't have to really worry about the black lines because you're gonna end up coloring those with black on the next layer anyways. So again, select all. That'll be Control A. So we'll just do Control A this time. Does the same thing. And then Control 8 to make a compound path. Now you want to select a color. It's yellow. You want to switch it over to outline. Lock the layer. And to go and turn off the eyeball. Now, you're on the last couple of layers that you're going to be working on. You're going to be doing black. But just so you can see the line, let's start with blue. Now you're going to have to do 2 layers of black if you want this to look right. The reason this is because when it cuts it out, if you were to take black and go all the way around this outline right here, it would cut all of this out. So you've got to do a little bit of black here and then leave a space, do a little bit of black here, leave a space, just like you would if you were actually cutting a stencil yourself by hand. So you select your tool, turn the eyeball on for that layer, open that layer and select it. Zoom in, maybe not so close because we're losing some quality of the line there. But you want to zoom in some. And then you want to go around your layer. I'm going to ignore that his nose has some white in there. We can always do another layer and add that white. So we just want to get in some of this layer here. Now I'm going to go and chop right there. Go back up. I'm just going to go around. Maybe we won't ignore the white in his nose. And we'll do his nose just like this. And we'll leave that spot open. And then we can go down his nose. And around his head. And we will stop right there and leave that open. Then we'll go to his doghouse and back up around his head. And we connect that layer. Now, once that layer is connected, you want to hit, let's go back so that it's open. We'll reconnect that layer. You want to hit Control, Shift, A to lock that layer into place. And then, or that section into place. And then you can move your tool on over. So, now we have these empty spaces here. We want to skip those. And so we skip down. And I'm going to go ahead and do this line. And take it this way just a little bit. Go ahead and make another cut. Come back. Finish this little bit of this line. And I'm going to go ahead and take it all the way around his paw. Come back up. And this will be the next cut. And the machine will actually cut this. It sees this as mathematical equations and it will cut it perfect. Matter of fact, as small as it is in a Cricut, it looks amazing like this, even though like you can see the little mistakes that I'm making. So once again, you lock it into place. Control Shift A will actually lock that into place. You can move over here. Let's go and do the eyeball, or the squinty eye. So it looks like he's napping. Now we'll put some more of his lines here. Go and go down his ear. Now this time we are going to ignore that white for now. You can always use a scraper to scrape out some of the background color or underground color. Or we can just paint a white outline on later with a foam brush, or we can make another layer with that white outline. So again, we want to follow his details as much as possible. And you can see that I'm going around the line twice, because if I just make a basic line, the machine won't actually see that. What it sees, it just doesn't work very well. You can experiment and try if you like, but this is what I have learned based on my experience. Just it will not cut basic lines. Now you can draw in the lines and do like a object or image trace, and the machine will see that, but it won't be as in line with the other pieces, and it will not cut right. It doesn't look as good. But you can do it. And then when it comes to resizing it for larger machines or something, it messes it up that way. This is by far the best way of going about making a full color stencil. Or at least for me. Maybe you will find that this is tedious and you won't want to do this. I find that it makes it easier for the machine, and the machine actually cuts the stencils out quicker when you use the pen tool and such. But again, you know, you may find something different. So again, you lock it into place by Control-Shift-A. I'm going to do stock size. Lock in place, Control-Shift-A. Now you can see I missed a couple of spots. I'll have to go hit those whenever I go fill in the blanks. Control-Shift-A again. I'm going to skip that. Yes, I know. It's driving the artist in you crazy to skip certain parts and not do them until another layer, but Illustrator is all about layers, and making stencils is all about layers, so you gotta take advantage of that. So, we're almost done with Snoopy. Now we just gotta make his doghouse lines. We're going to do the inside lines first because we want the Cricut to cut those first, because the more that it does outside lines, the harder it is for it to cut the inside stuff. Even though it has a sticky pad, it still sometimes will drag those inside pieces out if you do it backwards. And that's never fun, because they can get caught up in your Cricut. So again, you just trace the line, and you've got to trace it both ways because the machine will want to cut the line as an object just like it would any of the other colors. And so you've got to make the line an actual object and not just a line. That's the best way I can explain it. I think I didn't do a really good job of explaining it previously. But like I said, you just traced out lines, go up and down them, lock them into place with Control-Shift-A. As you can see, I'm really not hitting them perfectly. I'm just trying to do this for tutorial sake. So it's not going to be my best stencil or my best perfect representation, but I'm trying to sell through this pretty quickly so you can see the process and you can try to replicate it for your own stuff. And this can be done with all kinds of things, from, you know, animals to pictures of your friends and family to buildings, cars, just whatever you want to make a stencil out of. It can be done. And then you can make more comprehensive art with your stencils. So once again, you just trace your lines best as possible. Leave blanks to where when it cuts, it doesn't cut out the whole line, and leave an empty space in your art. Sometimes you make mistakes. When you do, you hit Control-Alt-Z and you can go backwards and correct those mistakes. And I'm just kind of whipping through this, trying to get these black outlines out for you. And you'll probably notice, since I went down, I actually skipped a layer and forgot about it, and that was the green layer. We'll do that in a moment after I finish these black outlines. Another great thing about Illustrator is you can actually go through and correct all kinds of mistakes or solve all kinds of problems just by working in layers that would take you hours of grief if you had done it with paints or pens or anything of physical media. It's a great thing to have because of those advantages. I recommend every artist at least play with it a little bit to get a feel for it. If you get a chance, take a trial, download a copy of it, borrow a friend's copy, something. Just try it out. It's worth it. And if not, get like one of the off-brands that aren't Adobe, that have similar features and products, and you'll be happy that you did. It's up to my art game by 100% for sure. So yeah, you just click your black outlines, lock it in place, Control, Shift A. Control Shift A. Control Shift A. So now you want to select all, that's Control A. And then you want to make it into a compound path, that's Control 8. Now we made it black, but that's alright because the first layer is going to be black number 1. Okay, so like I said before, we forgot to make that green layer, so we're going to take that down and make that green layer before we finish our black layer. So I'm going to type that and call it green. Green grass, since that's what it is. We're going to turn off the black number 1 eyeball, and we're going to run down the green grass. And this should be a quick, easy thing because, oops, it's going to be behind my black layer there. So it will be perfect. And Control Shift A, lock it into place. Control A to select all, and Control 8 to make it into a compound path. Let's make sure it did, and it did make it into a compound path. Let's select the color we want it to be, green, and we will lock that into place. I'm going to turn that layer eyeball off, turn the black layer eyeball on, open the second black layer, we'll call that black 2. We're going to select deep purple as the second layer, and we're going to go in and fill all these empty spaces. So for example, here to here to here to here. Control Shift A, move on, here to here to here to here to here. Control Shift A. And the way I do this, the stencils actually look like prints rather than stencils. And so people really dig it. I have been doing this for a long time. Even before I had a Cricut, I would do this, pretty much this exact same thing by hand using cardboard prints. And I always had good results because of that. So again, you're just trying to fill in the spots that you couldn't get to the last time. So that the picture is complete. You can overlap a little bit, it's okay. It actually kind of helps blend everything in. So we're finishing up here. We're almost done. Just a couple more lines, and this will be exactly what it's supposed to be. Alright, gonna scan everything, make sure I got all the holes filled. It looks like I do. So this is where you hit select all, object, compound path, make, and now it turned it black, but since you're going to be running in the Cricut, you want to go and turn your second black layer or any other color that you have twice into a different color that's close to that color. So I'm doing a deep purple. The reason this is because if Cricut sees black twice, it will put it on the same page. It's freaking crazy that it does that, but it will do that. So we're going to do the white layer one more time, except I'm going to do it a super light blue so that the Cricut will see two different colors. And we're going to add those final details of Snoopy's ear. Control-Shift-A. And it's broken on this image, but I'm going to make that white line solid. Just because why make a bunch of cuts for the machine? And then for his final little line, I'm just going to take the ellipse tool and drag and drop like that. Now, select all, which is Control-A. Control-A to make a compound path. You want to turn that back to the color that you want it, which we'll do a light blue in this case. And we'll name this layer White Shoe. Alright, now we can turn all the eyeballs on. We want to save this as an AI file first. Snoopy. Okay, this is just so if something goes wrong in the process, you can go back and fix it pretty easy. Now that's been saved, you can delete your original layer, the art layer you used to draw with. Now, you can take this and you save it as a standard vector graphic, which is an SVG. This will make it into a stencil. You can open the SVG into Cricut and run it from there. That's a whole different tutorial. We'll have to get to that on another time. Alright, now I'm going to show you what this actually looks like and make it into a cool JPEG that we can save. Select all, switch your color lines to your color fill. Lock that layer. Select all, do the same thing. Lock the layer. Select all, which is Control-A. Switch the color layer, lock the layer. Select all, Control-A, switch the color layer, lock the layer. Select all, which is Control-A, switch the layer, lock it. Select all, switch, lock. Select all, switch, lock. And there you have it. There's Snoopy vectored out. Thank you for checking out our tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and check back for more tutorials soon.